Hey family, in today's video is going to be a little bit controversial. That is why I'm kind of whispering here because I'm in a public place and I don't want to talk about this loudly here. But anyway, someone told me about this very controversial information, a global statistics, and I was so shocked and I decided to do my research. And while reading, I just sat there staring at my screen because I could not believe what I was reading. And I can't believe I'm talking about this. Anyway, Filipino women are number one in the world in this category. Number one out of every country on this planet. And most Filipinos have no idea this is even happening. So today we're gonna talk about it. Now, before I get into this, I want to be clear about something. I am not here to judge anyone. That is not what this video is about. It's just fascinating and it's something that is so weird. And I am talking about this because it's really interesting. At the same time, it's funny, but it's really interesting because the data exists. It is real. It has been tracked for 4 years in a row now, and nobody in the Filipino community is talking about it honestly. So I had to do a deep research just to understand it myself because at first I was just shocked. And when I started asking, why? Why Filipino women specifically? What is happening here? So let me share what I found and let me know in the comments what you think. So here's the data according to the reports from one of the biggest adult content platforms in the world. Filipino women make up 64% of all Philippine traffic on that platform. That means out of everyone in the Philippines visiting this site, almost two-thirds are women. The Philippines is one of only three countries in the entire global top 20 where women outnumber men in this kind of consumption. Three countries out of the whole world. And this is not a one time thing. This has been consistent and it has been growing because in 2019 it was 39%, in 2021 it was 52%, in 2024 it jumped to 59%, and in 2025 64%. Every single year going up. And there's one more number that really got me. The average Filipino user spends almost 11 minutes per visit. I mean, that is not someone who accidentally clicked on something. That is someone who is there on purpose. So, what is going on here? So, here's the first thing the research told me: 97% of visits from the Philippines happen on a mobile phone. That is the highest mobile usage rate in the entire world for this category. And when I read that, I actually understood something immediately because think about it. In the Philippines, most of us don't live alone. We live with our parents, we live with our relatives, multiple generations under one roof. There is almost no such thing as complete privacy in a Filipino home, except your phone. So your phone is the one place that is completely yours. Nobody is looking over your shoulder. Nobody's asking what you are doing. It is the only one private space that Filipino women have. Now, here is the part that I actually had a theory about even before I read this research. And the psychology backed me up completely. So, the Philippines is the only major Catholic country in Southeast Asia. And we all know what that means when it comes to talking about anything related to this topic. You don't talk about it. You don't ask about it. You definitely don't admit you are curious about it, especially if you're a woman, especially if you're a dalagang Filipina, the good Filipino girl. But here's the thing about human nature. When you restrict something, when you tell someone this is forbidden, this is shameful, do not even think about it, what happens? The more you want it, the more you curious you become. That is just how we are wired as human beings, I think. So, psychologists actually have a name for this. They call it reactance. It is the natural human response to restriction. The more you suppress something, the stronger the pressure builds. And it has to go somewhere. So the research says it perfectly. The technology didn't create the desire, it just finally gave it a room of its own. Now, here's another statistic that really made me think. The most searched term from the Philippines on this platform by Filipino users is Pinay. Filipino women searching for other Filipino women. Wow, that's really shocking to me. And this went global too. Pinay ranked a third worldwide as a search term. So when the researchers looked at this, they said it is about something called representation. So the idea that people want to see themselves reflected. They want to see someone who looks like them, who is from the same place, being seen as desirable. And honestly, I can understand that from a psychological point of view, even if I personally find that whole thing uncomfortable. Because for a long time, Filipino women were not only represented in global media as the standard of beauty. Western faces, Korean faces, yes. Filipino faces, not as much. So, in a strange way, this data is also saying something about identity, about wanting to be seen. And there is one more factor the research pointed to that I think is very important. So the OFW factor. The Philippines has over 10 million overseas Filipino workers, and a large number of them are women, nurses, caregivers, domestic helpers living abroad, sometimes for years at a time, away from their partners, away from their families, in a foreign country, often living alone with time on their hands and a good internet connection. So, research says that loneliness and physical separation from a partner is one of the biggest drivers of this kind of consumption. It becomes a substitute not for love, but for closeness and for connection. And when I understood that, I stopped feeling shocked. I started feeling like sorry, something more like sad, honestly, because behind every statistic is a real person. And a lot of those real persons are Filipino women who are sacrificing everything, their comfort, their relationship, their private lives, just to send money home. And the last piece of this puzzle is the age group. Almost half of all Philippine traffic, which is 49%, comes from 18 to 24 years olds. So another 29% from 25 to 34 years old. So almost 80% of users are under 35. And this tells me something very specific, that this is a generation that grew up with smartphones, a generation that has questions about their own bodies, their own desires, and nowhere to go for answers. Because let's be honest, sex education in the Philippines is almost non existent. We don't talk about it at home. We don't really talk about it in school either. The church certainly does not help. So young Filipino women are going online and they are educating themselves in the only place that will actually show them something. Is that the right way? Maybe not, but it is the reality. So, after all this research, what do I think? I think this data is not really about adult content. I think it is about suppression meeting access. It is about what happens when a society puts enormous pressure on women to be modest, to be quiet, to have no needs, and then gives them a smartphone with unlimited private internet. So the pressure had to go somewhere, and it went here. I am not saying this is good or bad. I am saying it is real. And I think we need to talk about it more honestly, especially to us Filipinos, because ignoring it or being ashamed of it is exactly the cycle that created it. So, what do you think? Are you surprised by this, or does it actually make sense to you when you think about Filipino culture? Tell me in the comments, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys again in the next one. Bye, guys.